I found this story rather interesting because I don't really, I do make use of year limits on processors, but most of the time it's like file descriptors and memory. But it's interesting to see some of the under the cover intricacies about some of these limits.
About the only thing I found interesting about it was it signalled to me a continued migration to the model that Linus rejected when Tenenbaum said he would give his project an F, as opposed to microkernels, which Tenenbaum proposed. The only use I can see for pinning a page in memory, by the way, means it always maintains the same physical address in memory. Obviously, it always contains the same virtual address, otherwise the program would lose track of it. There are very few reasons to give a page the same physical address, and mostly that's because you've told some other piece of hardware where the hell it is.
Yeah, like it sounds very much like the sort of thing that a device driver needs to do inside the kernel. Not a user space thing.
The end of that article toyed with the idea of, and said the ultimate idea was to make it available to user space. Once they do make it available to user space, that means that user space can talk to DMA controllers in reasonable safety. We've already seen Fuse. We've already seen some network drivers and a few other things move to user space. And now I would say that there are more file systems available now in Fuse than there are as the old model, which was compiled into the kernel.
Wow.
And I think this, and in some cases, Fuse actually runs faster than the original. I think that despite ourselves, we are migrating away from the big monolithic kernel model into... We're a long way from it yet, but this is another step in the way if it gets accepted.
Does that open the way to licensing issues?
There's always been licensing issues. NVIDIA has always published a bloody binary. I don't see how it's possible to publish a binary blob that is linked into the kernel.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA does it.
Yeah. But, I mean... If the kernel's providing this interface to give you essentially low-level access to hardware, then you don't need to write a GPL thing. You just write a program.
I see what you mean.
You just write a program that...
Yeah, well, that's right.
And you're using a system API, so you're not extending the kernel. It's not a module or anything. You're not using any of the exported GPL symbols.
I hadn't thought of that. And it's a serious problem. I mean, we suffer enough from manufacturers now who do not ever bother to specify the API for their devices, and it makes life extremely difficult for everyone. They enter into these agreements with ARM is a clusterfuck at the moment, to put it mildly, and we seem to repeat the same mistakes, and that this will make those mistakes easier.
Having said that, I am all for adding APIs that actually do what they say they're going to do. So like some of the tricks that are done in here where they will artificially increase the reference count on a blob of memory so that it doesn't get moved around and things like that. It's code smell that will cause problems down the line. So, if you're going to provide an API that does this, it's definitely the right thing to actually provide an API designed for that purpose at least.
Yeah, well, I'm of the unpopular view that forcing everything through the kernel trees is a significant choke point, which means that a lot of things which might have been easy to drive at some point are not. And every step we make to eliminating that roadblock is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. So I actually read this and thought, geez, we're making it's a small step, but the right step in the right direction. And no one seemed to be objecting to it either.
Yeah, but having said that, this is kind of an exploratory patch. It's not the final patch. I imagine that what will happen is when he actually starts adding some of the final features that he wants to, that there'll be some retaliation then.
Yes, well, best of British on the kernel list is all I can say.
All right, thanks very much.